how big AI is? Is it bigger than computer? Is it bigger than finding DNA?
Well, finding DNA is just one piece of information about how the world works. AI is changing how we interact with the world.
It is, I agree with Dave.
I mean, computers changed what we could do, but gradually they increased and increased and increased. And the internet changed how we could interact and we could access information. But computers did what we told them to do. And that was, you wrote code and it did what you told it to do. And you knew, somebody knew, the people who wrote the code knew what the system was being told to do. With AI, we don't know how it works. We know the basic principles. It takes a large amount of data, looks for patterns, uses those patterns to make predictions, either about what words to write in its sentences, or about medical outcomes, or about what the user wants it to do, or whatever. But we don't know the details of how it goes from that pack of examples that we gave it to the behavior that it's exhibiting.
Which is what's so kind of scary about it, right?
It's a scary thing about it. But the scary thing about it is that it's better at it than we are.
Oh, very.
That's the writing that it's doing. It's not perfect. It makes mistakes, but we make shitloads of mistakes. It doesn't make it nearly as many mistakes as we make. It's like self-driving cars. We're judging them on whether or not they're perfect. And we should be judging them on, are they better than whoever's out on the road right now? And yeah, they're a damn sight better than whoever's out on the road right now. They're sober, they're not old, they're not distracted, they don't have 4 screaming kids in the back. But the scary thing is that it is better at the things we want to do than we are. And so it is replacing things that people are doing very quickly, all of a sudden, over just a few years. Whereas, computers have been replacing, but slowly and gradually. This is happening very suddenly. And it's like every day we're discovering new ways that artificial intelligence can produce outcomes that are better than we people do. So it's very scary to think about what the outcomes are going to be, but we can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
It's here, it's happening.
They say, now with genomic data and just medical information and the amount of little bits of information out there, they say that bioinformatics data doubles every 100 days. Do you believe that?
Just in terms of
just volume,
sequences?
yes.
Probably.
Sequences plus just x-rays and blood tests and all that stuff.
And all of the protein analysis in people's blood. It's so easy to generate. That's what made AI possible, was that it became so easy to generate computerized information, whether it's chest x-rays or novels or whatever. It's all accessed online now. It's all digitized. So it's very easy to generate massive amounts of information.
Is AI intelligent or is it a copycatter?
Are we intelligent? The thing about AI that blows me away, that I think most people do not realize, I'm thinking about mainly large language models like ChatGPT, which have basically read everything in the universe, figured out all the patterns for how words go together, and mirrors them back at us when we ask questions. You think, oh, that's such a strange thing to do, I could never trust that. But that process that I just described is how we learned everything we know, just about.
Is it similar?
Almost all, there's 2 kinds of learning. There's the kind of learning where someone says, I'm going to teach you something. Here are the 3 principles. Here's the times table. Here are some facts for you to learn. And that's formal learning. And then there's what's called experiential learning, which is you learn about how the world works by experiencing the world working. You learn how language works by listening to people talk, by making noises at other people, by writing words down on paper and seeing what the consequences are. And the large language models basically have learned about language and about the world the same way that we have. We learn language not by being instructed, here's what this word means. We almost never look up words in the dictionary or even online. We almost never. Everything we know about language, we learn by being exposed to language. Everything we know about the world, we learn by being exposed to language about the world.
Okay.
We learn by listening to people tell us things, we learn by reading things, we learn by watching what happens when we do things. And that's how ChatGPT and other large language models learn as well.
Okay,
So when we criticize them for just sort of parroting back or, making probabilistic inferences about what words should come next, that's kind of what our brains are also doing. And the language models make mistakes. We make mistakes too.
okay, yeah.
I mean, you might have a very knowledgeable friend sitting beside you all the time who knows a whole lot about a whole lot of things. But that doesn't guarantee they're going to be absolutely perfectly right all the time. They'll make mistakes. They'll get words mixed up. And you'll say, wait, are you sure about that? And they'll go, maybe not. No, maybe I was confusing that with something else. The fact that large language models make mistakes is not proof that they're useless. It's just that they're not perfect. But they're way better than the bozo sitting next to you who doesn't know much. Pardon me, whoever. They're way better than the average person, including, your friends and relations. They're way better than your college professor because they've read way more than your college professor. And they can explain things in plain English, which your college professor cannot do. So that even though it's not perfect, and they're way better than a Google search because they have refined what you want and they're telling you what they think you will find most useful rather than just listing whatever they have to find on the Google search.
So like if you got to fix a bike tire or if you got to figure something out on Excel, you'll AI it as opposed to...
That's what I use it for mostly. I ask it, how does this work? Okay, so I live in a condo, I'm Strata Council. We are modernizing our elevator, which turns out to be extremely expensive and necessary for our position, given the age of our elevator. So I've been using ChatGPT to explain things to me about how elevators work. What do these words mean? And why does this cost so much? And it's great for that sort of thing. I use it all the time just to explain things. Teach me about things I don't know about.
Okay. But will it take over?
Well, a takeover, it's kind of a takeover in what?
Your job, my job, everybody's job?
Only if we tell it to. I mean, right now, it's not autonomous. It's not running the factories. It's not driving the buses. It's not.
But in 20 years it could, probably.
Well, I don't know.
Will it turn on us? Destroy?
I mean, we can imagine all kinds of futures when things like that happen, but I don't think it's productive to worry about that now, given that it's here. So there's the large language models, which are very good at putting words together and explaining things. I mean, it's read all the textbooks. It really does know a lot. It knows a lot more than anybody who could be sitting next to you. And it is much better than a Google search, but it's not perfect. But AI is doing other things where it is, in effect, actually much more powerful. It's doing amazing things in medicine.
Oh, for sure.
Because most of what happens with our bodies is due to subtle effects, many different factors interacting, lots of small effects. Most of these effects are too small for us to notice the individual contributions. But with a big enough data set. If you can get millions of people, get information from millions of people, you give it to an artificial intelligence system. That computer can find fine-scale, minor patterns that we are completely missing.
Yeah.
And it is turning out to be, I mean, my favorite example is chest x-rays. So most of us have probably had a chest x-ray at some time in our lives. They're a very standard, inexpensive, straightforward diagnostic tool, mainly for respiratory problems, subpart problems. But it turns out that there's actually a lot more information in chest x-rays because much of what all the rest of our bodies are doing affects what's happening to our heart, what's happening to our lungs, affects what's happening to our organs. And if you give a artificial intelligence system the chest x-rays from 100,000 people, along with, here's what turned out to be wrong with these people.
Okay.
Sometimes it was a heart problem, sometimes it was asthma, sometimes it was pneumonia, sometimes it was lung cancer, sometimes it was a cracked rib, whatever it was. And sometimes, the thing that was wrong with them was like they'd sprained their ankle or, things that didn't seem to have psoriasis, things that didn't seem to have anything to do with chest x-rays, but they had a chest x-ray for whatever reason. The artificial intelligence system will analyze all the details in those images, those x-rays, with a level resolution far better than the radiologist can. And will sort of collate the data, look for patterns among those 100,000 images, and will find little differences that we had completely overlooked that predict, this little difference was associated with people who had a particular kind of circulatory problem that we never thought would show up on a chest x-ray. But
So we didn't teach it.
We didn't tell it. We said, here are the x-rays, here's what was wrong with these people. Look for patterns. And it comes back and it says, I can tell you with 95% confidence that a person with this kind of x-ray is going to have this wrong with them. And you train the system by giving it x-rays plus the medical histories of the people. You can then test the system by giving it x-rays without any information about the medical histories and asking it to predict what's going to be wrong with each of those people. And sometimes it'll say this person's perfectly healthy, and sometimes it'll say this person's got congestive heart failure, sometimes it'll say this person's got diabetes, or this person's got Alzheimer's,
Or someone's
and
stomach
you go,
problems.
how would you know
Yeah.
that? And it turns out that it can do this better than a radiologist can do.
Currently?
By
or
quite
future?
currently, now, absolutely, reproducibly, a number of different big studies make it very clear that AI can do it better than the radiologist can
You're
do
going to
it.
anger the radiologist. that's
Well,
it.
it's worse than that, because in some studies, so in these studies, they would take this set of x-rays unlabeled, give them to the radiologist and give them to the AI system and ask each of them to diagnose what's likely wrong with this person based on this chest x-ray. And the people doing the test, giving out the x-rays, had the medical histories of all these people. They just didn't give them to the AI system or the radiologists. And then you check how accurate were the radiologists, how accurate was the AI system. And you say, no, the system's like 30% better than the radiologists. But it's worse than that, because this has happened for not just with chest x-rays, that's just a simple example. But here's the real kicker, is in some of these studies, in addition to just having radiologists and just having AI, they said, well, what if the radiologist could use the AI as a help?
Okay, yeah.
What if, this is what we'd like to think would happen in the future, that the radiologist would be assisted by the AI system. You would think that the combination of the expertise of the radiologist and the AI meant that combination the AI-assisted radiologist would score better than the AI alone. But it doesn't. The radiologists don't want to take advice from the AI, and so they will persist with their diagnosis, even when the AI says, well, no, actually, I think it's something different. There's about 6 studies out now showing that.
Yeah, it's very similar in the chess world as well. Like AIs are ranked 3,200 and the best humans 200 less than that. Which at that level is a huge margin. And so humans at that level really can't do anything to help an AI.
I mean,
There's nothing more to add. Just do what it says in that position.
if we want the best diagnosis for patients, that's the challenge is, and I was trying to explain this to the students, that it's your career. You could be this radiologist. How are we going to systems where we are taking advantage of the enhancement in our lives that AI can provide without kind of removing all meaning and accomplishment from our lives? Right now, we're at this very sort of scary point where we really don't know. I mean, it's crap that the environment's sucking massive amounts of power.
Just asking the AI questions crazy, right?
Well, there's a nice table you can ask AI from this table to compare how much energy is used asking AI to do different things. So simply asking it a question, can you explain this? Takes, more energy than simple Google search, but not a lot more, maybe twice as much. If you ask it to analyze a document, that can take more. If you ask it to create an image or a graphic, that sucks up a lot more power. If you ask it to create a video, that sucks up a ton of power. It's like orders of magnitude increases in how much power is used for all these different things. So, I mean, asking it to explain things, it's not much power at all. But asking it to create something for you, something complicated, can be really energetic investments. And then there's the whole copyright thing, where my sense is just get over it.
Well,
People are going to read what you've written and use it, and AI is going to read what you've written and use it.
Rosie, what if someone's in your class and they use AI to get the answer?
That's a different thing. That means maybe I should have designed a different question.
But you would never allow AI in class.
What do you mean I wouldn't allow AI in class? I've been giving assignments that say, use AI and then write a little report on how helpful is AI.
Really?
Use AI as a tutor to explain a genetics concept and then write a paragraph explaining how helpful it was or wasn't. See, if you think that education is about learning facts, memorizing facts, then AI feels like cheating. But education should not be about learning facts anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
you need facts to do things, but you don't want to learn facts just for the sake of knowing facts. There's an idea, you have to know the names of all the bones in the body. But
Not every bone.
there's some bones, and you remember the names of the bones that you actually care about. The other ones you might have to look up. My exams are always open. They've always been.
But, well, the problem is in Rosie's class, if you don't have the deep understanding of it, you're never going to have enough time to finish within that time frame.
Once I gave an exam, students were whining about how I never have enough time, blah, blah, blah. I would've done that. And so I said, okay, technically this is a 2.5 hour exam, but you can take as long as you want. I did that. And it was an open book exam. Most people finished in 2.5, 3 hours. And most everybody else finished in like 3.5 hours. And then there were like 3 or 4 people sitting there still looking through their notebooks and their textbook. And around about 4 hours, I said, okay, well, I'm going now. You can just slide your test paper under my door.
So it's not a time-dependent thing.
But part of that is you need to think about teaching. I mean, assessment drives learning. This is one of the scary things about teaching, is that what we end up teaching students is driven by what do we have the tools to assess. I mean, we like to think that we're teaching them creative thinking or critical thinking. We don't have tools to assess that. We have tools to assess whether you remember the names of the bones in the body, or how they are connected, or what they do. In my genetics course, they write explainers. Every week, they have to write plain English. We give them a situation and say, okay, explain this to your cousin. write a letter to the editor about this, explain this to the man on the street, you know.
Yeah, those are the hardest questions
And that
because
is-
you can't
those are-
regurgitate.
Right, but I mean, if you could use ChatGPT could do a beautiful job of explaining this. So, I mean, the impact of large language models on education is really scary. Largely because even in what we're teaching at present, without AI, we don't really have a way to assess the things we really want students, the skills we want students to build. And so we wind up assessing them on things that turn out to be things that AI isn't really good at. They'd be stupid not to use AI when they can. We have no way of telling. We think that we can tell if something was written by AI. But the other thing is that their world is changing. What our students are going to need to be able to do in the future is unclear because AI is changing the landscape so drastically. And so even if we knew how to assess the things we want to learn, that wouldn't necessarily be the things we want to learn. So it's a really scary situation, and most academics are responding by going, nope, no AI. I'm not touching it.
But it's kind of the gorilla in the room, right?
Absolutely. I'm glad we got to talk about AI because I think it's so important.